An amusement park so cursed it never opened again. A hospital so haunted the city finally chained the doors. A government building where guards still swear they see people who died decades ago. These places aren't urban legends in forums. They're real structures with real history, documented shutdowns, and hours of footage you can still find online. Stay with this video until the end to hear about the building that terrified staff so deeply that authorities cleared it out, boarded it up, and left everything inside as if people had just stood up and walked away. All over the world, there are buildings people simply walked away from and never came back to. Officially, many of them were closed for safety concerns, budget cuts, or structural issues. Unofficially, the stories are darker. Shadows on empty stairwells, doors slamming in sealed wings, voices on tape when no one was there. Tonight, we're exploring real locations so haunted, so cursed in reputation and in eyewitness accounts, that their doors were shut for good. And all of them have something you can actually see for yourself: news reports, urbex videos, police statements, if you're brave enough to look. Every building carries memory. Some were built on battlefields, others turned into prisons or asylums that saw neglect, cruelty, or mass death. When those places start racking up accidents, tragedies, or impossible stories, people stop treating them as just real estate. They become cursed buildings. In this video, we'll move from abandoned hospitals in the US to ghost-infested colonial offices in Asia, from a Japanese cliffside suicide spot to a haunted attraction literally shut down as a death trap. Along the way, you'll hear stories that line up with actual closures, inspections, and video evidence. Stay through to the end to hear about the site explorers call the Frozen Hospital, where power still runs, but the patients are long gone. Danvers State Hospital, the birthplace of modern horror. Perched on a hill in Massachusetts, Danvers State Hospital looks like something ripped straight from a horror movie, for good reason. The towering brick Kirkbride complex opened in 1878 as a psychiatric hospital and soon became overcrowded, with reports of lobotomies, restraints, and abuse that inspired the fictional Arkham Asylum in H.P. Lovecraft's stories and later Batman lore. By the late 1960s, budget cuts gutted staff, and wards began to close one by one. By 1985, most of the original hospital stood abandoned. The entire campus finally shut down on June 24, 1992. But the building didn't go quiet. Urban explorers who crept into the decaying wards uploaded footage of children's toys still in place, patient files scattered, wheelchairs rusting in hallways. Paranormal teams filmed unexplained voices and moving shadows in the old treatment wings. Danvers was eventually partially demolished and turned into apartments, but many residents and security staff still report footsteps in empty corridors and lights flicking in sealed sections. This is one of the rare cursed buildings where you can cross-check the ghost stories with real history and real video. An asylum closed for good, yet never truly at rest. Yorktown Memorial Hospital, so haunted the city locked it in. South Texas, Yorktown Memorial Hospital, built in the 1950s, was already known as one of the most haunted sites in the region, long before the city finally shut it down. Paranormal channels flocked to it, filming tours where disembodied voices were captured on EVP recorders. Shadow figures appeared at the ends of long corridors, and visitors reported being scratched or shoved in empty rooms. Since 2019, the owners hosted dozens of investigations without any code violations. Then in 2025, the city of Yorktown officially deemed the property unsafe for occupancy, posting notices that prohibited all public entry because of risk of structural failure or hazardous conditions. Legally, the shutdown was about safety, collapsing ceilings, mold, and unstable floors. But the timing, after a surge in ghost tours, viral videos, and growing local complaints, gave the closure the feeling of a final exorcism by the city itself. Today, you can still find hours of footage from inside. Nurses' stations left in place, children's wards with toys, chapel pews, and investigators reacting to whispered voices right next to them. The doors are locked now. The building is officially off limits. But anyone who visited will tell you the hospital closed long before the city declared it, just not for reasons printed on the notice. Lawang Sewu, the Thousand Doors of Java. In Semarang, Indonesia, stands a colonial-era complex whose nickname means 1,000 doors. Lawang Sewu was built as the Dutch East Indies Railway headquarters, but during World War II, its basements and cells were used as a prison and execution site under Japanese occupation. Local lore holds that many prisoners were tortured and killed there, with their bodies dumped in wells beneath the building. After the war, the building changed hands and functions, but eventually fell into disrepair, its echoing corridors and broken windows becoming a magnet for ghost stories. Headless apparitions on staircases, a female spirit in long white dress near the courtyard, disembodied footsteps within the central hall. For years, the complex sat largely abandoned, its reputation as one of Indonesia's most haunted buildings overshadowing its architectural beauty. Travelers, vloggers, and TV crews have filmed inside, capturing eerie atmospheres, unexplained mists, and locals who refuse to enter after dark. Eventually, restoration began and parts of Lawang Sewu reopened as a heritage site, but huge sections remain off-limits, with official signage citing structural and safety concerns. Those are true, the building is old, but talk to local guides and they'll tell you quietly, some doors remain sealed because no one wants to disturb whoever still walks behind them. Aokigahara's Lost Hotel, business at the edge of despair. Japan's Aokigahara Forest, at the base of Mount Fuji, is infamous as a site of suicide. Less talked about is the decaying hotel and small abandoned structures at its fringe, built to serve hikers and tourists, but over time entangled in the forest's darker reputation. Urban explorers have filmed themselves wandering through empty lobbies, peeling wallpaper, and rooms with bedding still in place, noting the unsettling quiet and the way sound seems to vanish among the trees. Officially, businesses around Aokigahara struggled as the area's name became linked with tragedy. Some shut down due to declining tourism, others because the cost of maintaining aging buildings on unstable terrain grew too high. But those realities merged with ghost stories. Apparitions glimpsed at windows, strange figures following hikers around the edges of the car parks, and voices caught on camera where no one else should be. Police and volunteers regularly sweep the forest for signs of people in distress, and some abandoned structures have been cleared or demolished to discourage more tragedy. Yet, videos from just a few years ago show the interiors frozen in time, as if staff simply walked out one day and never returned. A haunted hotel at the edge of one of the world's most sorrowful woods. A haunting in Hollis, when a haunted house becomes a real death trap. Not all cursed buildings started haunted. In Queens, New York City, a residential building was illegally converted into a commercial haunted house attraction called A Haunting in Hollis. It did so well that it featured on TV and social channels as a must-see Halloween experience. But in 2024, the FDNY and Department of Buildings inspected it and found 3 staircases built without proper permits, blocked emergency exits, poor electrical work, and fire-resistant materials removed. Inspectors called it a real horror show and a death trap that posed life safety hazards that could have been tragic if there was a fire. The city issued a full vacate order, forcing it to shut down immediately. This is a rare case where the phrase, "so haunted they shut it down," cuts both ways. The scares were staged, but the danger was real. Lawsuits emerged from visitors reportedly injured by unsafe slides and features. Here, the curse was greed and negligence, turning a fake haunted house into something far more dangerous than any ghost. A place where hundreds of people could have died in minutes. The owners promised to fix issues and reopen, but for a time, the building itself became the fright story. Proof that sometimes the most terrifying thing in a haunted building is its code violations report. Willard Asylum and America's frozen hospitals across the United States, old medical complexes and asylums dot the landscape like abandoned shells of an earlier era. Willard Asylum in New York, parts of Trans-Allegheny in West Virginia, countless county hospitals left to rot. Willard, opened in 1869 for the chronic insane, held thousands over its life. It finally closed in the 1990s, but the campus remained full of artifacts. Patient suitcases in attics, clothing, notes, photographs, discovered decades later. Urban explorers and documentary crews have captured footage inside similar institutions where lights still work, equipment hums, and clocks hang on the walls as if time simply stopped. One widely shared description of a massive abandoned U.S. hospital notes that power still runs in parts of the complex, with beds made and charts on the counters, yet no staff, no patients, no active services. Official reasons for closure usually revolve around deinstitutionalization, budget cuts, and shifting healthcare models. But once these buildings are empty, their histories take over. Workers who stayed late in the last years reported hearing gurneys rolling down hallways with no one there, intercoms crackling to life with voices from empty wards, and children laughing in locked pediatric wings. Many of these facilities are now sealed, posted with no trespassing signs, and watched by local police. Not because ghosts are on the city council, but because the combination of physical danger, criminal trespass, and a history soaked with trauma has made them too risky to leave open. The buildings may be empty, the stories are not. The one place explorers call too much. Among urban explorers, there's a recurring phrase for certain sites: too much. Too much history, too many reports, too many personal experiences of something they can't explain. In Europe and North America, several massive abandoned hospitals have reached that status. Power still on, personal belongings still inside, surgical theaters intact. One such complex, often described online but rarely named precisely to prevent vandalism, is called the largest abandoned hospital in the United States, said to remain eerily frozen in time. Explorers describe elevators that still respond to buttons, security lights that flick on suddenly in distant corridors, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps matching theirs on floors above, only for them to find those halls completely empty. Some have left mid-exploration, shaken enough that they refuse to return, even with cameras rolling. Technically, these closures were about money and modernization, but the effect is the same. Huge, fully equipped buildings sitting dark and quiet, guarded not just by chains and cameras, but by the weight of everything that happened inside. So why do these places fascinate us so much? Because cursed buildings are the physical intersection of history, tragedy, and the unknown. You can read about a haunting anywhere, but standing in a hallway where the wallpaper peels around old medical notices, or seeing a vacate order sign slapped on a haunted attraction makes it real. When a government shuts down a building for safety, that decision is made with engineering reports and legal forms. Yet, locals rarely talk about those. They talk about the nurse seen in a window of a hospital that's supposed to be empty, or the woman in white who still weeps in a former palace corridor, or the nights when voices echo from a property that hasn't had lights on for years. The official record says structural failure or budget cuts. The unofficial record? The one written in whispers, YouTube explorations, TikTok clips, and late-night urban legend threads, says something else. If you've stayed to the end, you've heard how bricks and mortar can become magnets for stories the world can't quite explain. The next time you pass an old hospital with boarded windows, a grand colonial building sitting empty, or a local haunted house suddenly closed until further notice, you'll know. Sometimes the most cursed buildings aren't demolished. They're just quietly left to the ghosts, and to whoever dares to bring a camera inside. If this journey through the most cursed buildings on Earth gave you chills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive. Tell us in the comments which place you'd dare explore, and which one you'd never step inside, even in broad daylight.